This episode of Voices of the Elephant is brought to you by Nomad PHP. Start a habit of continuous learning. Visit nomadphp.com and subscribe today. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Voices of the Elephant. We're here in St. Louis, Missouri at PHP Tek 2016, and my special guest is my friend, Mr. Ian Littman. Say hi to everybody, Ian.
Hey, how's it going?
Now, Ian, you're speaking here at Tek. Have you given your talk yet?
So I've given half of the two. Last night was around mutation testing, and today is going to be about using PHP in a way that you would maybe use Node traditionally as a high-performance web server built into your actual application code.
Oh, hey, that sounds interesting. Let's get to that in a minute. But first, let's talk a little bit about PHP and Docker, because you've got the new Docker beta for Mac.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Have you used it?
I have. So prior to picking up that beta, and while I was waiting around for the beta, even prior to that, I was using the Docker toolbox with Kitematic and dealing with the idiosyncrasies of using Docker machine and forwarding all the ports, and maybe hopefully they work, and hopefully your volume mounts work, albeit slowly. And finally, I would be able to get a somewhat functional system for Docker on my computer. Now, with Docker for Mac, that has been cleaned up significantly. They brought, I think, a company or two in-house to really streamline that process, where if you get an invite, you download the installer, you run it, you put in a key code, because again, it is invite only. You put in your admin password so it can set up some kind of kernel mode VM stuff, and then it sits up in your menu bar and runs Docker. Everything feels, except for volume mounts, as if you are running it locally. Performance is good. It's just a really seamless system that they've switched to, and I'm really excited to be using it. It's worked really well.
Now, when you say performance is good, how does it compare to just, with PHP applications, how does it compare to just running the PHP native in OS X?
So it will be slower, and part of that is because you are running still in a VM. It's not some crazy userland area where they were able to somehow get Docker to work on Mac OS. That's still not a thing. However, it does compare favorably to, say, running something on VirtualBox. One note here is, if you are doing a volume mount where you're loading a local file system into the Docker container, then you're still going to see a performance penalty on that, just like you would on any other VM. However, they are cleaning that up significantly. The last beta that I downloaded, I guess, last night or night before last, they said, yeah, we fixed some stuff with path traversals, so this should, particularly for interpreted language, of which PHP is one, drastically improve file system performance on this. Now, the other way you can get around that is in your Docker file saying, okay, copy all my files over at build time to the container, at which point you don't incur that penalty, although at that point you also have to rebuild the container to see any of your changes.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. I have not delved into it. I'm on the beta, and I have run the test container, and everything seems to work, but I've not, the projects that I'm working on right now do not lend themselves to being Dockerized or containerized at the moment, so it just hasn't been a priority. But it's good to know that they're making progress. I was very excited when they were moving it to a more native feel. I know it's not completely native, but it's a more native feel than it has been previously.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's also a Windows beta out there, which if Apple doesn't announce something really solid at WWDC at this point, with the canonical partnership with Bash support and that sort of thing, there is a fair chance that I could be back to running a Windows machine as my portable dev box, which I couldn't have said a year or two ago.
Wow, that is, that's serious, and I can understand that. Hey, before we move on to high performance PHP, I'd like to talk to you a minute about Nomad PHP. Nomad PHP is the PHP user group for those who do not have a local PHP user group. If you don't have one in your local area, or for some reason you can't attend your local user group, we'd like to invite you to attend Nomad PHP. You can get all the information at nomadphp.com. We have 2 meetings every month, one in European Central Time, one in US Central Time. And they're 2 great presentations. They're each different presentations, and you can get, for one low price, you can get access to both. Or if you don't want to commit to a subscription, you can buy the meetings one at a time. If you don't have a local user group, please, we'd love to have you join us here at Nomad PHP. Now, let's talk a little bit about high performance PHP.
Sure. So, in particular, the talk that I'm giving is centered around not just your standard fast CGI FPM model, but doing something more akin to what Node does, or what many other languages do, which is running your application in the background, fully bootstrapped, and then bouncing web requests off of it.
Very cool.
So the catch, of course, to that is maybe your application is not built to survive beyond 1 request, or maybe it has memory leaks such that it won't survive past 100. Even with the current kind of FPM-based stack, there are options that you can tell it, hey, restart my web server after 100 requests, because just because of extensions, I'm going to be leaking like a sieve at that point, and I don't want to use up all my memory. Now, you have potentially some of those same issues, or more so, if you're running PHP itself as a web server, which is distinct from the PHP built-in server introduced in 5.4. But the positive to that trade-off is if you have clean code that does run well in a multi-request context, you get a fair amount of performance out of it. On top of that, rather than farming out stuff to a job queue for asynchronous communications, you can say, hey, I'll throw this stuff onto what effectively becomes a worker thread in the background, and when the event loop gets around to it, run these tasks. Now, that's not a particularly scalable solution. You're going to want to use a job queue for larger stuff, but it does give you some additional flexibility for working outside the context of a single request.
Have you, I know you write a lot for PHP Architect Magazine. Have you put together an article about this, or is this talk the first thing that you've done on this topic?
So this talk is the first thing that I'll be publishing or speaking about on this. I've done some PHP Architect stuff, and there should be an article coming out soon on some other topic. But this is the first time where I've sat down, gone through, and actually rewrote a small application that I built, a year and 3 months ago, 3 separate times, to compare and contrast the various means of having that PHP runtime already bootstrapped and serving requests without starting from nothing.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to seeing your talk and to hearing more about this, because it sounds like a fascinating technique. Hey, before I let you go, same 2 questions to ask everybody. What's your local user group, and what's the URL?
So I bounce between primarily Austin PHP, which is at austinphp.net, and I have enough friends over at the Laravel Austin user group that they put up with me there as well, and that's laravelAustin.com.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Ian. I appreciate you taking time out of your conference schedule to be with us here today. And you took the time to put together a talk for us and share with us what you know. So thank you for that effort.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Voices of the Elephant.
Voices of the Elephant is copyright EICC Incorporated and released under a Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Share and Share Alike license. To nominate someone to be a guest on Voices of the Elephant, visit our website and click on the Nominate link. The URL is voicesoftheelephant.com. Elephant is of course spelled E-L-E-P-H-P-A-N-T.